In this demonstration, I will be displaying how you can have an array parallel to a list box, along with being able to add items to the array in list box and delete items from each as well. So what I've done is I've created a form called form array. On there's a list box called list student, a button for btn add, and a delete button btn delete. I'll double click on the add button. And when somebody clicks on add, it is going to add add a student to the list box, the student name, and it's going to add their telephone number or email. I'll go with email address to the array. So at the form level, because this is going to happen outside of just one click event or one sub procedure, I'm going to declare an empty array. So I'm going to dim str email sub -1, which is just for an empty array, as string. Under button add, we're going to ask the end user for the student name. So I'm going to create a couple variables. Student name, student email. They're both as strings, student name and student email. We'll gather the information from end user. So str student, str student name equals messagebox.show. Actually, we'll use an input box. Enter student name. And for a title, we'll go with name. Same thing for email, so I'm just going to copy and paste. Change it to email and email. Okay, if str student name equals nothing or str student email equals nothing, then we'll throw a message box at the end user. Please enter a name and email. And we'll do nothing else. Otherwise, we can actually add this to the application. To do so, we're going to say add student name to listbox. So lst student dot items dot add and str student name. So that one's covered. Next, we need to increase the length of the array. So I'm going to say redim preserve str email sub str email dot length. There we go. And what that's doing is it's redeclaring the array, so it's making it whatever length we're telling it to be. And the preserve is actually keeping what we already might have stored in the array. Because at this point, we don't know if they've added 20 students or if they've added no students. And then with the dot length, that's dealing with the count that starts at the number 1. So currently, it would return 0, because there's nothing in this array. Well, str email sub 0 actually would be containing one element. So we're now going to use that element. So str email sub str email dot length -1 equals str student email. The reason why we're doing the -1 now is because dot length would equal 1 for the first person, but the 1 references element 0, so we're subtracting 1. Just like if we had 6 people in there, the length would be 6, but the elements would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's why we're subtracting 1. Once we do that, we should be set. So I'll put my comment in here, student email to array. I'll save that and run it. Let's see what we get. There's arrays, add, Sylvester Sam, click OK, student email, and we have Sylvester Sam. We don't have a way of knowing that the email was stored at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, when they double click on the name, it's going to pop up in a message box the person's email address. And that'll show you that the parallel array is working. So I'm going to double click on the list box. And the first thing it goes to is selected index changed. Well, we don't want that. We want double click. So I'm going to click the drop down box over here and select double click. I'll get rid of the other sub procedure we don't need. And if a student is selected, display email. So the first thing we need to check is if list student.selectedIndex is greater than or equal to 0, then, so we're making sure that they're not just clicking on a blank list box or a blank area within the list box. So if they've actually selected on something, we're going to pull that information from the parallel array. So messagebox.show str email sub listStudent.selectedIndex. What that's doing is it's going to the email array based on what item they selected in the list box. So if they clicked on element 0 in the list box, that corresponds to element 0 in the array. If they click on element 5, it corresponds to element 5. So that's why the selected index matches the element number or the position within the array. I'll save that and test it. So Wile E Coyote, hopefully I'm spelling that correct. There we go. And acme@msn.com. There's Wile E added. Double click. And there's the email address. So we're in good shape. Alright, on to the challenging part. We need to delete an element. So remove student from listbox and remove their email from array. Okay, removing from a list box is a real easy thing. We just remove at and whatever position they happen to click on. Simple as pie. However, how do you remove an item from an array? An array is an invisible list box. So to do this, we need to actually move the other elements up the list. So if we have 5 items and we delete the third, we need to move element 4 into the third spot, element 5 into the fourth spot, and then just wipe out that last element. And that's what we're going to do. So if listStudent.selectedIndex is greater than or equal to 0, then, so we're positive that they actually clicked on an element, for I as integer equals listStudent.selectedIndex to listStudent.items.count minus 2. And we're doing that because we're not going to be modifying the last item in this array, because we're going to grab that item and move it up. And remember, count is 1-based, elements are 0-based. So, now we can modify the array. So str email sub I equals str email sub I plus 1. So we're taking element 4, putting in element 3, element 5, putting in element 4. And that's all we're doing there. Next thing we need to do is actually remove that last element. So we're going to say redim preserve str email sub str email dot length minus 2. Remember, length is 1-based, so if we just went to dot length, we'd be adding 1. Well, we don't want to do that. Minus 1 wouldn't change the length of the array. We'd end up with the same length. Minus 2 actually removes the extra item. So we have that done. Next, we just need to remove the item from the list box. So list student dot items dot remove at, and then list student dot selected index. So it's going to remove that item from the list box. Now, really, we should be asking to make sure that they want to delete this item, but for time's sake, we'll go with this. So for the first student, we'll go with Sally student. Sally at school.com. Add another one. Fred Smith. Fred at school.com. I have no idea what that address does, though. And Bugs Bunny. And BBUNNY at school.com. So we have the 3 in there. If I double click on them, I can verify that their email addresses are correct. Now I want to delete Fred. So once I delete Fred, that'll move Bugs up in the list and remove for email and in the list box. So I'll click delete on Fred. He's gone. But now let's verify that it removed it from the array. Double click on Bugs. Bugs Bunny at school. Sally student at school. Perfect. We now have added an item to a list box, added it to the array, and also removed from each as well. And that concludes this demonstration.